Diane, thank you for being here. I appreciate your time. You're coming to us from Hawaii while you're on vacation, as we can see behind you.
Yes, actually, there's palm trees and golf course, and I'm actually here for work, to tell you the truth. So, helping, it's not my work, but I'm helping my best friend in her work. And so I get to tag along and then I get to be helpful.
Yes, that's good. Thank you for being here. So I want to talk with you. You and I have met, we met through a Facebook group, and now we work together in different ways of collaboration. So I wanted to have you on the show because, as I said at the beginning in the intro, you're a four-time cancer survivor. You
Hmm.
are a four-time author, two independent books, and one or two collaborations with another collaboration about to come out.
Yep.
And your story through the cancer survivorship is really what we're going to talk about is what happened before you had cancer that even if if it's fair to say started to prepare you for
Yes.
this other lane in your life, as you've called it. So
Yes.
let's just go from the beginning in terms of how it relates to the conversation we're going to have and the abusive relationship that you suffered through for a very long time and the strength it took to move past that and the things that help prepare you, as we said, for the hard times ahead.
So, when you're young, you think everything's going to be great. Well, I mean, maybe that's just my natural way. I'm optimistic and positive, right? And so I married a man who I knew probably wasn't the right decision. How about that?
Can you tell us that?
But
And let's stop there because some people who are watching might have that same thought and they do
yes,
it anyway. So, what were some of the things that made you think, this might not be a good idea?
well, he was younger than me, significant, like 7 years younger, which that's not the thing at all.
Mhm.
But he wasn't quite as, what's the word? Mature. How about that? And he had a temper. A, he demonstrated his temper regularly, and not against me per se. Well, kind of, but so he was angered easily.
Mhm.
In fact, when I finally got counseling, I realized that he had a rage addiction, similar to being addicted to any other kind of intoxicant. So it
You
felt
got
good to
something
him.
out of that.
Yeah, it felt good to him to get mad and to do something about it because you're full of adrenaline then. It's just like taking a hit of something, I would imagine. And so, of course, I didn't see that all at the time. I just thought, like the line from Steel Magnolias, maybe he was just in a really bad mood for 10 years. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and there was an actual moment where I was driving. I get most of my moments when I'm driving, to tell you the truth. And I was thinking, this might not be the right decision. But we were like down the road, right, to the wedding and all that. And then the day of the wedding, my best friend, who this year we celebrate 48 years of BFFing, she was my maid of honor, and we were getting ready to line up and go down the thing. She looked up at me because she's little, and she said, we could just take off. You don't have to do this. And I'm like, shh. And so we did it. And
That happens so often, especially like you were saying, we were in the thing, like the wedding's planned, the money's been spent, the people are coming, the hotels are booked, flights are booked, and it's a lot of pressure. I
yeah,
briefly remarried after my late husband passed away.
you did.
Yeah, I mean, it's in the book. And so I've talked about, I don't talk about it much on the show, but it seems appropriate. He wasn't abusive in any way like that, but I, about 3 weeks before, I almost called it off. And I didn't.
Hmm.
And for that exact reason, because everything was in motion. And I thought, oh, well, this issue that I'm feeling is, we can get through that. I mean, we don't want to cause any trouble for everybody. And
Right.
it lasted maybe a year. I mean, it was a bad decision from the start. It was a grief decision. It was a fear decision,
Hmm.
and I undid it, thankfully. But so just to say that it's relatable to be in whatever in the throes of it and like in the motion of it, and especially the younger we are, the less choices
Yes.
we think we have,
And
right?
I wasn't even that young. I mean, I was like 26. So I
Well, I
wasn't,
was 30. 34, so
there you go.
or 35, whatever I was, so not that
But I
young.
want to touch on the thing that you said. It was a fear decision. When you said that, it like went straight into my heart because I have realized since that mine too was a fear decision. So just a 1 minute background. I grew up as the big girl. And so, less options, you might think, or fewer promposals, you know? And then when I was 17, I actually was asked out by a really popular, good looking guy, and I was assaulted in that. And it was my first time. And those two things created a trajectory for me that I've had to work through and create a new path. So because of those things, um, I think I want to say easy prey, but I don't think that my first husband was actually preying. I don't think he knew himself well enough to prey on me. But I think I was,
Maybe not being aware that he was,
yes,
right?
because
It
I think
wasn't
I
a
was,
calculated decision, but he was attracted to you for a reason, and part of that might have been the reason.
yes, because I think I was the perfect foil for him because I think he picked up on that I would take it, right? I would take whatever.
Right.
And so, and I want to say that we had some great times. We went on lots of adventures. We had a lot of fun. So of course, if it was all bad, I would have probably not married him or gotten out of it sooner. So it wasn't. But this rage addiction thing, when you want to be mad, you need someone to be mad at, right? To turn your rage to. And so I was his closest victim. I hate to say victim, but because I don't think he saw it that way, but I did take it. And so
when
it
you
was
go ahead, sorry. You broke up a little bit. So when you started going through this process, so then what did it take for you to finally leave? How long were you married to him when you left?
17 years.
17 years. And what was
And
the catalyst that made you leave?
well,
Was there one or were there many compounded? What was the final? How did you
there were
finally
a
get to that
few.
point?
What was happening was I realized I hated myself because I was allowing his, you know, the comments like, no man would want to be seen with someone who looks like you. You're a fat pig. I mean, and those were the nice ones. And so I let them have space in my head. And then so I was to the point where I hated myself. And one day I actually held a gun to my head and thought, you're worth nothing. You're ugly. You're not, you're a terrible person. And so I didn't pull the trigger. And I would like to say that that was the day I packed my stuff and I was out, but it doesn't work like that. I don't live in a Hallmark movie. So, but I realized that I needed to find a way to love myself again. And I needed to find my way back to being my like I was confident in my career and all of that. All that was moving forward with a great trajectory. But as a human, I was not. I was beat down. So we were living in the Bay Area. We ended up near San Francisco. Both of us are from Southern California. We ended up moving back to Southern California. And it was worse than ever. I mean, he was not even coming home like 4 or 5 nights a week. No idea where he was, what he was doing, nothing. Same verbal harpooning, let's say. And then what happened was, as I've been doing this work around confidence, as I've been doing work around my value, my self-worth, I was out of town for a conference and I'm not proud of this, but there was this feeling like, I wonder if he's right, that no man would be attracted to me, that I am hideous, that men would be embarrassed to be seen with me. Turns out that wasn't true.
You tested that out.
I tested that theory and it wasn't true, but that's not how I wanted to. So I cheated. And that's not what I wanted to be. But it did happen because I was a mess. So he somehow was tracking my phone, like calls on my phone. I don't know how you even do that. And so when I got back, um, he literally had me on the bed with his hands around my throat, and I couldn't breathe. And we were actually at my parents' house for my dad's birthday, and I yelled one thing, and one of my brothers came through the door, pulled him off me, threw him out of the house, said never come back. And that was it. It took him threatening my life, physically hurting me, because that was the threshold I had set.
Yeah.
Like I used to
You're
think,
accountable to your family because they've seen it.
yes.
Yeah.
And in my
I've heard
head,
that in other stories where you keep it a secret, you keep it a secret. And then once it's out, now you're accountable to all these people who
Mhm.
care about you. So let's take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about the next lane in your life, as you've called it when we were talking off camera, and get to the part of survivorship and the lessons you've learned and the gifts you've given to the world because of what you've gone through. So we'll be back in just a moment. We're back talking with you, Dianne. So we talked through in good detail, and I'm glad that we did, about
Mhm.
the relationship you were in, the 17 years it took you to leave it, and how that may have contributed to the preparation of the hardship ahead. Beginning with your first diagnosis of cancer, how old were you?
I was 42.
42. So some years after. How long after you left him were you diagnosed with cancer?
So the marriage ended in 2005, and the diagnosis was in 2007.
Okay. So not long, but long
Uh-uh.
enough to kind of get yourself back. You'd already been
Yes.
working toward that.
Yes.
So we know that at least with your type of cancer and the cancer I had, it meant chemo, it meant being bald, it meant talk about feeling not yourself,
Right.
not very pretty. That can come along with being bald and going through the things that it requires to hopefully make a full recovery, as you have, and so have I. So when you started facing those kinds of things, how did the work and your confidence help you to look in the mirror and not hear the things he was saying, when now, probably more than ever, it would have been a time for you to not feel pretty, not feel good about yourself, not have the self-respect that you needed to get through what you were facing?
Well, I will say that I did get some counseling, some therapy, when the marriage broke up, because I needed to understand how I made these choices, right? So that was helpful. And I had been doing this work all along about my own self-worth and my own self-confidence. So, 2 years after the marriage ended, broke up, um, when I was diagnosed with stage 4 aggressive non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, it was uh, acute. I mean, it was like, my oncologist said the day we met, which is the day before the diagnosis, when he did a bone marrow biopsy, he said, "You were at death's door." And he told my family, "I'll do everything I can, but I'm not sure I can save her." So, you know what that does? That shakes up your thinking right quick,
There's
right?
nothing like, I've experienced a lot of different things in my life, and I would say that there's nothing like something like that to put every single other ridiculous, stupid thing that runs through your head every single day into perspective than that. There just isn't.
Absolutely.
And if you've not
No.
experienced it, you're blessed. If you have experienced it and it didn't shake you in a different direction in your life, something else will knock on your door again, because that's the
Yeah.
intention.
Yes, that's what it's for. I mean, if you can think of it that way, you can overcome it much more quickly. And I write about this in my most recent book, Journey Through Illness, because I was still working on healing from that marriage and all the stuff that came before it. And so the question I had was, um, can I still find healing even if I don't heal from this cancer?
Yeah.
Like it was,
Yeah.
because I wanted both. So,
There's an
and
oncologist I've worked with a lot. His name is Dr. Nodder. He's here locally. And every time I interview him, we end up doing a two-parter because he's just so insightful. He's just a beautiful man, one of my favorite people on the entire planet. And he didn't treat me for cancer. He was my follow-up doctor when I moved here after my husband passed away. And I was still getting CT scans, and I was still going through the whole thing every year. And I was 8 years out, and now I had an allergy to CT contrast, and I'm
ooh,
risking my life to get a CT when I'm a widowed single mom to our 5-year-old boy. And he just said, you are healed. You're cured. Let's just we're going to take this different path. No more CTs. And I haven't had a CT since. So but my point in bringing him up is he talks a lot about how, you can get to the end of a life with a patient and they can still heal even if they don't survive.
Yeah.
And that is something that he goes into detail explaining. So when you said that, I immediately thought about those conversations we've had, because we are given the time we are given, and that is it. And so without that guarantee, it's kind of like, we have to do whatever work it is. If we're doing the work ongoing, doesn't mean if we get there, doesn't mean if we, get to the top of the mountain and feel like we've done all the things we need to do and fix all the things we need to fix. But if we're in the process, if we're in that journey in our lives, then at least we're, working toward that, right? So that is the part of healing that is the gift we give ourselves, whether
Absolutely.
it's cancer or something else,
Yes. And the view from halfway up the mountain is still pretty good.
Yeah.
It's definitely better than at the bottom, right?
Right.
So yeah, so I was working on healing, and then I realized how vital it was to keep pushing myself in that lane while I was trying to live and survive, right? Because the question was, it's just like retirement. People say, I just want to retire, and they want to retire from working, right? My question has always been, what do you want to retire to?
Yeah. What are you going to do
Right?
now?
Yeah. So with the cancer stuff, I want to live. I want to be free from cancer. Okay, to what?
Yeah. Right.
And that's if you allow it, it's just like yoga. You soften into the pose and then you could stretch even further. If you soften into what you're going through, you can stretch yourself further and it can take you where it's meant to take you.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
you survived that seemingly almost unsurvivable cancer to be diagnosed 3 more times. Let's take a quick break, and I want to talk about the last diagnosis, but also your most recent book, to make sure people know that there's a way to get the insights that we're talking about, receive those from you, and the gift of your book. We'll be back in just a moment. Dianne, we're wrapping up our conversation and we only have a few minutes left, but I want to get to the part where you've had the first diagnosis that you weren't even supposed to survive. Then you had 2 more cancers. And as of 4 years ago, you were diagnosed with breast cancer, having a double mastectomy. And, there's 2 questions I have for you. One, how did that part of it affect like your ability to move forward? It's the 4th time. Do you start to feel like, I got this? Like, I know how to do this. What is that like? And then anything else you want to add to that?
Well, what was interesting is I tell people a lot, when you're working on your growth and your personal development, you don't walk across the stage and get a diploma. There's not like a graduation or a ceremony or a celebration. You have to look for milestones, mileposts along the way. And when I sat in my surgeon's office finding out, I was like, okay, double mastectomy is fine. Let's get a pair of really perky 30-year-old boobies and I'll be fine, right? And she's like, oh no, you're not a candidate for that because of all your other cancer and ongoing treatments. And I was like, wait, that's not the deal I made. And she's like, well, we have a lot of support groups because women lose their femininity. They feel like they lose their confidence. I'm like, no, wait a minute now. I don't need boobs and I'm going to be fine. And when I walked out of her office, I was like, I feel like I have a cap and gown on. I just got a diploma, because that was pure confidence, pure worth and self-love. And I'm still always working on it. But that day I was like, damn, girl.
You got to put it into practice.
Yes. And see how much I had changed. It was fabulous. And so you had another question. I'm sorry.
Well, there was that question, but also the part about, when you have that many diagnoses. I have a colleague / friend who had Hodgkin's, the same that I had. I think he had it 3 times, and he got leukemia from the treatments. Then he had to have have a heart transplant from cardiomyopathy. And he's been without health crisis for many, many years now. And he's survived his cancer for decades. And he's had his heart for like almost 20 years. So those times are behind him. But, the hits kept coming. And
Yes.
so,
yes.
did you ever get to a point where you're just kind of like, okay, what am I not learning? Or do you get to the point where you're
No.
like, I got this. I'm still learning.
I was always, I got this. When we got the diagnosis, my husband and I got the diagnosis of the breast cancer. He looked at me and he's like, obviously, God thinks you're good at this. So he's just like, letting you do it again.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, that's right. I got this.
One way to look at it, right?
Yeah. Well, he had a very small stroke. And so we joked that I said, hold my beer. I got breast cancer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
one up in him.
yeah. And so it took me a really long time to write my most recent book. And part of it, I realize now you have to trust timing. And that was helping me have more understanding. The book is Journey Through Illness. And I write about my whole journey. And I write, really, it's the ultimate guidebook for a trip you never thought you'd take. The whole purpose is not to necessarily tell my story. It's to help people if they get on a journey through a life-threatening illness, what I learned, what I applied, what worked, what I asked, how I lived. And so, but I talk about that. It's like, let the things that come into your life mold you, change you, put you on a new path, because that's what they're meant to do if you let them.
I believe that wholeheartedly. And I think during some of the biggest hardships in my life, it's like, where's the lesson? Where's the lesson? And also trying to find the balance. So you go through something like this and you write a book about it, and you get letters from people who've read your book. You get messages from people who've been impacted by it. And it's really true. You're doing it to help others. For me, it was a bit of an archive of my story, and especially my second book, to make sure our son knows his dad's story and how hard he fought to be here. And there's legacy work to that. There's an opportunity to hold that space in your family and in your circle of what your story is. And it's a gift to be able to do that. Not everyone can or would choose to do that. And then to make the decision to share it with the world. It's like I just shared with you earlier in the show that I remarried after Wesley passed, and I got unmarried very quickly. Not proud of it, but I wrote about it, so it's out there, and it's okay. You know, it was part of the journey that I've been on. And so I always appreciate getting to talk with people like you who have that insight, because like I said, nothing like a diagnosis or a health crisis to get you pointed in the direction maybe and stop focusing on the things that just truly don't matter. Now, we all have things that are challenges in lives for sure.
Yes.
Jobs, marriages, finances, all the things.
Sometimes all at the same time.
Sometimes all at the same time. So we're not negating those. We're just saying that there's an opportunity at every turn. So thank you for being here and sharing your story with us and your book.
Thank you.
And all the ways that you've made it better for yourself and for others. So thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
Take care. Enjoy Hawaii.
I will. Aloha.